Marvin.
Okay, so nice.
Likkutei Torah, Parsha Masei. Last year we learned a different mimer. Now we're going to learn Pei Tzadik Aleph at the bottom. It's a mimer for Masei. Okay, so the pasuk in the second parsha begins. Eila Masei b'nei Yisrael. These are the journeys. V'yichtiv Meishes Mitzrayim l'Maseyim. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, they're going out for the journeys. Ve'eila Maseyim l'Mitzrayim. These are the journeys for the going out. We need to understand. Lo megabi ksiv vayichtiv Moshe. Why, when it says vayichtiv Moshe, it says first Motza'ehem, they're going out, and then the journeys. And then it says, these are the journeys for the going out. Why does it switch the order? But Moshe Rabbeinu said, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, they're going out for the journeys. And then it says, and these are the journeys for the goings out. First it says Mitzrayim, and then the journeys. And then when he turns it around and he says, Eila Maseyim l'Mitzrayim. And he says, Gam mal vayichtiv Moshe. It says here, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. The whole Torah Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. So why does it say here, vayichtiv Moshe? Obviously, if it says it in Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it. The mistama Moshe kasu k'chol ha'Torah sh'HaKadosh Baruch Hu omer, u'Moshe omer v'kaisiv. Like the Gemara at the Medrash says, when Hashem dictated Torah, Hashem said the words, Moshe Rabbeinu repeated it and wrote it. So why does it say here, vayichtiv Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the journeys if he wrote everything in Torah? So there's two questions, the change of order, Mitzrayim l'Maseyim, and also why does it emphasize that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the journeys? So he says, the 42 journeys that the Jews traveled through the desert. Together with the Aden, the Aden was made afterwards, because when did Moshe Rabbeinu said the first number of journeys, they didn't build the Mishkan yet. Like he says, Masei said Midbar Sinai, Nasu B'lay Aden, because they didn't have any Aron yet. The Aron was made when he said after Kisisa, in Truma and Tetzaveh to make an Aron. Shem Keneged Ma, the 42 journeys correspond with the name of Hashem, which is Mab, which is the 42 words of Ana B'Chayach G'dula Simincha, that whole thing. Like this. There are 42 journeys. The 42 journeys were not all positive, because why did they have so many journeys? Because the Meraglim sinned. They were supposed to go straight into Eretz Yisrael. Meraglim sinned, it caused them to have the 42 journeys. Here we're making a big holy thing out of the 42 journeys when seemingly they because of negative. So L'chayra, how can the Mem Beis Masois be holy? In other words, I'll try to sing like this. The 42 journeys correspond with the 42 the letters of Ana B'Chayach, the words of Ana B'Chayach. Right? That's why you have in Sfira, you have every day a letter of Ana B'Chayach, and at the end of the week you have the acronym for the 6. Okay? So L'chayra, even though the 42 journeys came because of the sin of the Meraglim, he says, nevertheless, because out, he's Sibas. The Eibishter made things happen. So in other words, the Eibishter wanted 42 journeys. So obviously they're holy. And he says, there's even a positive reason, according to Nigla Gemara, what happened when the Jews, it says in the Medrash, the positive thing of the Jews for 40 years in the Midbar was the Canaanites, the 7 nations. When they heard the Jews were coming, they hid all the treasures in the walls of their houses. Then, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, Hashem made leprosy in the houses. They had to take apart the house, and they found the treasures. So simply the positive aspect of the Jews staying 40 years in the Midbar was for the Goyim to hide all their treasures in the Midbar, in their houses. But he says, in Ruchnius, the 42 journeys are very holy. It came about because of the Meraglim. That's a side issue. But they wish to running the world, and that's the way it happens. Like it says, about being Nister. And according to Kabbalah, Niske B'Sfarim. It says in Kabbalah Sfarim, what was the purpose of the Jews staying 40 years in the Midbar was La'achnias HaMidbar HaGadol VaNeira, to subdue and transform the Midbar, Aidei Membes Masei, through the 42 journeys, Shenos V'chanu Knesset Yisrael Ima Arein, which is Keneged Shem Mab. It says like this. The simple reason everything Hashem does is good. The simple reason why the Jews stayed in the Midbar 40 years to get the houses loaded up with gold and silver. Spiritually speaking, because when the Jews traveled through the Midbar that had Nachash, Sara, Va'akav, snake, scorpion, spiritual. So the Jews had to have the avodah of subduing and transforming the evil of Midbar, and that gave them the koyach to be able to transform the 7 midas rois of the 7 nations of Canaan. So all these things that Hashem does is always good. It's always good. So he says, why do you have to subdue a desert if it's anyway not livable? It's already subdued. A midbar is bittul because there's nothing there. So what do you have to subdue it? What's the Inyan? Is like this. Midbar is called Midbar Amim, the desert of the nations, meaning Shumak unique is Kol HaKlipa. Midbar represents the source of all evil. Remember in the Anilu Deidi Maimed, the Rebbe explains, the Melech comes into the field. The Rebbe explains really comes into the Midbar, which is even lower than Sod, at least things grow. Nobody lives there, but things grow. Midbar, you don't live there, nothing grows. So he says Midbar represents the concept of evil. You know, the Rebbe asks the question, why do you have to subdue a desert if there's nothing there to begin with? There's nothing there, what are you going to be bittul to nothing? I mean, it's already nothing. He said Midbar represents the source of all evil. It's the opposite of Yerushalayim, which is the ultimate level of Kedusha. That's the gateway to heaven. All the hashpah from above goes to Yerushalayim. From the Kedusha of Yerushalayim. In other words, all the holiness of the world comes through Yerushalayim. And from Yerushalayim it goes out all over the world. Therefore Yerushalayim is not in the desert. Yerushalayim is in the middle of civilization. And the opposite of Yerushalayim, which is the source of Kedusha, he makes it Midbar, which is the source of evil. It doesn't, it's salty, nothing can grow in the desert. Why? Because the difference is like this. B'kedusha me'ev yaveh mishkalei shokli. In Kedusha only gives, it doesn't take. There's a famous story with Rabbi in the Gemara that he was poor and his wife said to him, wanting to get different, they tell about different people, but his wife was complaining, get some money. You know, you do miracles for everybody else, do a miracle. He went out, he down in the field, and a golden leg, came out from heaven, and he took it. And that night, his wife had a dream that everybody's sitting at Gan Eden at a 4-legged table, and they're sitting at a 3-legged table. So she understood that something's going to come off from somewhere else. So she told her husband, take it back. I don't want it. So he went to the field. He stuck, and the hand came out from heaven and took it back. So the Gemara says that was even a bigger miracle than the first one. Why? Because the Gemara says, "Momayla mishka shakle." I'm sorry. B'kedusha me'ev yaveh. The Gemara says in kedusha they give, they don't take. Takers are klipa. It's only like it says the yitush, have. You know, just give, take. So kedusha gives. So therefore he says like this. What?
What's Mishkal L'Shakli? Mihav Yahav.
Me'ev Yohav, they give. Mishka lo shakli, they don't take. Take, they don't take. You know, they don't take back.
But doesn't the neshama, when a person passes away, Shemayim takes the neshama back? The Shemayim always takes.
That's because the time came to go home. But here, Hashem took back. It's not the middle of the...
That's your question.
What?
I mean, Yerushalayim is in, it says is in a very Yoshu.
Right.
And the opposite, arch opposite is
Midbar.
the desert.
Right.
Arch opposite should be a place where people do bad things.
That's representing Midbar. Nachash, listen. Nachash, Sarav, Va'akrav. Snakes, scorpions represent total evil.
But those are creatures that Hashem created to be that way. Total evil is human beings who do bad things.
Yeah, but he's saying the people travel through the Midbar to conquer not only the physical snakes and scorpions, but the internal snakes and scorpions. Every person has snakes and scorpions within them. It's called the evil within them. Coldness.
It's symbolic. It's not, the desert itself is breeding not a bad place. It's symbolic.
What do you mean symbolic? Desert represents not only nobody lives there, that means Adam Layashim Sham, meaning there's no godliness there. It's not only lack of godliness, it's actively evil. Snakes and scorpions.
There are no humans doing any sin.
But it's
a place where humans are doing bad things. That's a bad place.
That's called desert.
That's
in a place where people do bad, the place is called desert.
Right. So the Sahara Desert itself is not a bad
Okay,
place.
we're not getting anywhere. Come
Wait, isn't the marshal proof that the Gash in heaven? And then he came down, leg up the deck.
And where do you get your body from, and where do you get everything from?
Where he says that?
Commercial costs of Atim Mechayas Kulam. Shetomid Nimshachan Eshbois Achayas. That is constantly sustaining Kedusha from above. Or Lehepel Beklipa. On the other hand, Klipa, it says the expression have, give. The Gemara says, there's a passage that says, V'la Luka Shtei Banes. Luka is like a blood sucker, you know, the worm that sucks blood. Leech, whatever. So it says, V'la Luka Shtei Banes, that this leech had two doors and they say, have, give. So that represents the level of klipa, that all they want is to take, give. Shemavak shenakol b'shvil atzma. Legamei, they want only sustenance for themselves, ve'ena mashpiyim l'zulasi. And they don't sustain anybody else. That's the ultimate level of klipa, because kedusha means giving. That's the definition of kedusha. So he says like this, what's the level of midbar, spiritually speaking? Why did the Jews have to go through the midbar? Because the midbar is the source of all evil. And therefore the Jews, by being in the midbar 40 years, transformed the level of evil, klipa, to the level of kedusha. L'chein afa midbar pasal l'chisi adam. Therefore, dirt of a desert, you're not allowed to cover the blood when you shecht a chicken or a beast. Because like the Gemara says, because it doesn't grow anything. You can't grow things in a midbar. Dirt in a different place could grow things, but that dirt can't grow because it's like you said, it's salty, whatever. So therefore, through this, that the Yidden traveled in the midbar. They subdued them. And what happened to the Ovis, meaning the Shvatim, everything, is the action of the children, meaning us, because of this fact that the Jews traveled through the midbar and transform it to the Kedusha. This gives every Jew until the end of all times the courage to transform evil to Kedusha, which is the serpent's skin. That the beginning of evil, what's the source of all evil? From a taiva. Like we find in the Chumash, interestingly, by the Chetei Tzedas, what did it say? Chava saw, Ki sava hila inayim. It was good. It was lustful to the eyes. That's what the Gemara says, The Gemara says, "Einayim rayis v'alev chaymed." The eye see, and the heart desires. Out of sight is out of mind. Something you don't see, you don't want. So you see it, and then so it says that's the whole level of. Okay, so how do you get the body to not want all the tivus, all the desires and lusts, and to want only godliness? Because already the Yidden did that. The Yidden in the Midbar accomplished something for all generations. That a Jew has the ability to take a Midbar, personal internal Midbar, nothing grows, nothing this, and you're able to transform it to Kedusha. Avulul, if the Yidden wouldn't be in the 42 journeys, in other words, without what the Jews did in the desert, we would never be able to overcome evil. So he's explaining that the 42 journeys in the Midbar, officially was a punishment for the Meraglim, but the Eibishter made it because that gave for all future generations the koyach to overcome Midbar.
Which is very holy.
Huh?
Very holy.
Yeah. Kim lefik shranich na'amalka shalahem. So why? Because the Jews in the Midbar already transformed and subdued the source of all evil, which is called Midbar. Source of all evil. Therefore, even the branches of evil will be able to be subdued through the people like Klaluprat. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining the Masei through the desert. What's in Stam because of the Chet HaMeraglim? Because it has to be good from everything that's seemingly negative. So Alpi Nigla, he said, because they got the treasures. Alpi Chassidus, that 40 years in the Medbet, the Membez Masois, which is the Shem Mab of Anim B'chayach, that gave the Yidden the koyach for all generations to subdue evil. So now he says in Beis, so now the Alter Rebbe is going to ask a very simple question. Why did he make Klippa? And say break it, let him not make Klippa. Why was it from Hashem livrei klippas? To create evil. And then you have to subdue him. The Alter Rebbe says, don't make this and don't make this. Don't make evil, and we won't have to transform it. Hashem makes evil, and then he says, go break it. The question is, why don't make it? We don't have to break it. What did you want to ask?
Parsha said was pay you Dalit.
Pay you Dalit. Perik Yudalit. Perik Yudalit.
If this thing don't happen, there will be no revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Okay.
Maybe you wrote the Maimer.
It has to happen. I'm just guessing. It has to happen. So
Obviously, that's the explanation. Because when you don't have Klippa, and that's like a tzaddik level. When you have evil and you break it and transform it, that's a much greater level. So it's called Yidid Tzarech Aliyah. This is not any different than the question asked, why doesn't the Neshama come down in the world? Let it stay up there. So it's the answer, by coming down, it becomes greater than what was before. If Hashem didn't make Klippa, it wouldn't be as great as making Klippa and a Jew breaking it. Or transforming it even. What?
We have to suffer.
seemingly.
Right.
Nothing good comes easy. Look at, for instance, I mean, that thanks to the Chav and Eitz Das. The birth of a baby doesn't come easy. Believe it or not, raising kids ain't easy either. The difference is that giving birth, you may be in labor suffering for a few hours, whatever, and this is years straight. So nothing good. L'fum tzayda agra, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos. Based on the pain, no gain. So the whole inyan is Because when you work on something, then it purifies it. We learned many times, the concept of a filter. A filter is a blockage. If the water doesn't have a blockage, it doesn't become filtered. Filtered is only because there's a blockage and it breaks through the blockage, which means there's suffering, so to speak, is blockage, and then it becomes pure. So that's the whole concept according to Torah, of challenges, tests, suffering, all that. It's all good. It's a filter. If Hashem didn't make Klippa, Jews wouldn't have the ability to transform Klippa. So where do we get the koyach to do this, by the way? From the fact that the Jews did it in the Midbar. They did it in the Midbar. That's like when it says Ma'isa Av is similar Mabanim. What happened to the Av is a sign for the children. The Ramban says that what it means is that because the Avis did it, that gives us the koyach to do it. That's why when it says in Pirkei Avos that it says 10 generations from, Adam to Noach, and then 10 generations from Noach to Avram. It doesn't say Avram Avinu. It just says Avram. When he speaks about the 10 tests of Avram, over there it says Avram Avinu. So the Rebbe explains why over here does it say Avinu, here not. Because that's a historical fact. 10 generations, to Adam to Noach. It's not relevant to us. When it says 10 tests, Avram, my father had, and he passed, that means if he's our father, then we could do it too. Because we have that inheritance. So when it says Avinu, it's because we have the ability to, who made that happen? Avram Avinu. That was his greatness. The Jews in the Midbar made the ability, obviously I shouldn't give it to them, but they accomplished that Midbar was transformed to Kedusha.